everyone. I am Shannon Pruitt, Global Chief Marketing Officer of Stagwell Brand Performance Network, and I am thrilled to be joined here today by my friend, and who also happens to be Patrizio Spagnoletto of the Global Chief Marketing Officer of Warner Brothers Discovery Streaming. How'd I do?
You got it.
Crushing already this morning. We are here at the Cannes Festival of Creativity at Sport Beach, which is super fun. I'm so glad you could come.
Beautiful. I love what you guys did with this place. It's really nice.
Thanks.
Yes.
You know, we just pop it up. No big deal. It's fine.
It's inflatable, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
You just stand it up and it's not a problem. But thrilled that you're here, so thanks for coming. And I think it's a meaningful time for Warner Brothers Discovery and to be having this fun conversation. You know, we're here. Sport Beach is really designed at thinking about fandom, global fandom. You, obviously, as a massive sports entertainment streaming company, are thinking about fandom constantly. And so can you talk about, in your role, which you've now been in for 2.5 years?
3.5 years.
3.5.
Yeah.
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Do we know each other?
Nope.
Okay, good. 3.5 years. Well, time flies. Okay.
It does.
3.5 years. Can you talk a little bit about, what have you learned around, and obviously keep spanning and, changing and iterating and all this and everything going on. And then also you just launched Venue. Can you just talk a little bit about how you're thinking about all of these things as it relates to content, connecting with fans globally, and what that means for your role?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all.
You're welcome.
And look, it's been a really interesting 3 years, and even just the last year since we launched Max, first in the US and then in LATAM and EMEA. From a fandom perspective, I think the most interesting thing that I learn every time we launch a title is that every title has its own audience, has its own kind of unique characters, and the way that you engage with each of them is very, very different. And then on top of that, you layer the brand fandom, right? Because yes, we're in the business of marketing great titles like House of the Dragon and Hacks and so many more, but they all are part of a mosaic that make up the Max brand. And we have to make sure that we build relationships with our fans for Max as much as the single titles. And there's always core fans to specific titles and specific franchises. So those ones are the easier to engage with because you can have a very authentic conversation.
Right.
Where it gets a little bit more challenging is if you go a little bit outside that first bullseye, the concentric circle of the audience, and you go to the next one, and then the next one is, how do you find things that can bring them into a conversation? They don't need to be fanatics about any of the titles, but enough for them to engage. And if we get them to smile, hopefully, and or share with someone else, all the better. And the social team has done an incredible job, and I'll give you a specific example.
Great.
So about 3 months ago in the US, we had a show come out called Quiet on Set. And we didn't expect much of it. It was a kind of a documentary, if you will, about stars and some of their not so great experiences that they had when they were growing up, basically. And it blew up on TikTok. Like literally within 24 hours, it just went crazy, and we didn't expect it. And so we listened to what the fans were saying and what was about the title that made it go so big. And within like literally 6 to 8 hours, we built a marketing campaign behind it, and we put it out there, and it became one of our top 3 titles of the year. So that's when us and our fans work together on things that are very good that we didn't know about, and also vice versa. There's certain titles that we had high hopes for that didn't perform just as well, and we got to learn, when to take our foot off the pedal and respect their opinions and move on to the next thing. So
when that happens, and we'll get to Venue, but we'll talk about that and maybe after at the end. Actually, might be interesting because I know you probably can't say a lot about it. So, but that's fine. But we are here at Sport Beach, and we're talking about sports, so we got to talk about it. It'd be weird if we didn't talk about it. But I think you mentioned about sort of bringing people into the Max brand via the titles, but then also using the titles to develop the Max brand, right? And that reciprocity, right? I think you're expanding into Europe right now. How is that? How do you think about that when you go into a new market, right, or a new territory? Because I think, obviously there's certain things that are more mature than others. Certain things have global fan bases and certain things don't.
Yeah.
So how do you think about that?
So, you know me, and I like analogies, right? A brand
brilliant.
to me is literally like a person, right? And a person has certain characters and attributes that you are who you are at your core, right? Now, I may act a little bit differently when I'm in Cannes versus Brazil versus Italy or whatever, to respect the culture and to better be part of that culture.
Yeah.
But at the core, I'm still who I am, right? That's how we think about our brand. There's an added layer to it in that Max is, if it's a person, it's actually taller. It's been around for a year. So we have to take extra care of this brand because it's in this infant years that we have to define it to make sure that we know who we are, but also who we're not, right? And it's very tempting to say, well, in the last year, we added sports and news and so many things that you want to go broader and broader. But the danger in doing that is by trying to be too many things to too many people, you end up being nothing to everyone. And so the discipline that we are actually working with 72 and Sunny on is to really refine the brand and to make sure we know that, not that we know what we stand for, we know what we stand for, but we know how to execute that every day, because marketers love to think about the big flashy campaigns and the Super Bowl ads, but honestly, the emails that we send to our customers are just as important, because those are touch points with somebody who's already said, yes, I want your service, and it matters. And to your point about having just launched in Europe, it's very different, right? I'll give you another example. Our tagline in the US is the one to watch, right? And it has a little bit of multiple meanings, like obviously literally the one to watch, but also a little bit of an upcoming challenger statement. And when we thought about how do you bring that outside of the US, option one is literally in English, the one to watch. Like a Nike has, just do it. And on the other extreme is just something that is completely detached. We ended up being somewhere in the middle. So in Brazil, for example, it's muito mais a ver, which means there's much more to see. And variations that are maybe 15 to 20%, where the words are different, but the intent behind it is what we want it to be about. Like, that's still Max, right? It sounds simple. It literally took us 3.5 months to get to the actual words. And when you're launching in 39 markets in LATAM and then in EMEA, it is a lot of work. Because for us, it's easy to say, okay, but that's just Norway. No. People in Norway, that is all they know. So if you don't treat every market with the same respect, then you're not doing good by the audience and you're not doing well by the brand.
Yeah, right. It's how does the brand behave, right? It's like, again, like you're at your core, but you would behave differently in different contexts a little bit, right? So, which is interesting, right? Because you think about, kind of shifting back maybe to the titles and away from Max, but you just had a successful launch of House of the Dragon Season 2. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think, entertainment marketing is a agencies get hired because very specifically they understand the space, right? It is and I used to run the Disney Network portfolio at Horizon, so I actually didn't really understand that until I started working in entertainment marketing. But as you think about sort of how do you take that, and when you are launching a title where there is such fandom, right? Almost different than launching your stream or customizing your streaming service, how your brand tone and behavior and all the things. When you're launching a title, people feel like they know the title. They know the characters, they know the storylines, they know what they hope for in what they're gonna see. And when you go from a season 1, a successful season 1, into a season 2, how do you protect that? And how do you do that in such a way that you're not just thinking about, oftentimes even in Cannes, we start thinking about like North America, right? But the truth is these things are beloved globally. So how do you think about protecting the integrity of that, the intention of how you want to show up for the fans, but also continue to invite them into what's new and next for the property in a way that they can embrace and love and, continue to be your greatest ambassadors for that particular story?
It's a great question. And for something like House of the Dragon, which is one of our main franchises, as you mentioned, it is a spin-off, if you will, from another great franchise of Game of Thrones, which has been incredibly beloved across the world. But House of the Dragon is not Game of Thrones. It's its own franchise with its own characters and its own story. And the reason why I bring that up is because while we want the Game of Thrones audiences to come over, and they do, we also want to open it up to new audiences. Right. And that was the challenge of the first season, is how do you reset the world to make people understand that you don't have to have watched Game of Thrones to watch and enjoy House of the Dragon. And thankfully, the first season did very well. It had record numbers in terms of viewerships, in terms of number of people that came on the platforms globally. So on season 2, now there is a story. You have to understand what happened to the first season, but we still want to bring in new audiences, or at the very least bring back the audiences from the first season. So step one is really understand the core truth of the show. And look, we have a ton of fun with dragons and battles, but it's actually a story about families. And it's a story about relationships, right? And it is a very deep story that I think most people can relate to, whether there's dragons or not. Everybody can relate to stories about relationships and family. And so that's one of the core truths of the show. And when we push things like that, we get better responses. So the next part is, how do you do it in a way, that's the unique part. Check, we got it, right? Then you have to do it in a way that's impactful and relevant. And that's where literally enter the dragons, right? You can have so much fun with a franchise that is literally bigger than life. And we did a few things that were incredibly new and a little bit risky, but I think they paid off. So probably the biggest one is, for the first time ever, we, or anyone, put something at the top of the Empire State Building.
Oh my gosh.
We put a dragon at the top of the Empire State Building. Now you can imagine the social kind of world that goes around that, but it just connects you. If you are a fan of the show and you see it, it doesn't say like House of the Dragon, it's like, but you know it, right? And our entire campaign, so as I mentioned, is a story about a feud between two families. And our entire campaign for this season was all must choose. You have to choose, the green family or the black family, and we had so much fun with it. We created digital toolkits for social so that anyone could put banners about which family they're at. And so it went completely viral. Everything from where my son's going to go to school, he sent me pictures of TCU with banners that choosing green, all the way to the stock exchange in New York had physical banners that they put up.
Oh my gosh.
And rinse and repeat for Rio, for Madrid, for every market. Every market. It became something bigger than life. And now marketers all love to, like, how do I create that? The answer is, like, there's no formula, right? You have to find the right ingredients of, like, something that people care about and making it easy for them to care about. And then it's up to them. And sometimes it doesn't work. This time it worked. And we've been very, very happy about it. And the first season, the first episode did very well. So we're excited to get on this journey again.
Oh, that's so fun. Guess I'll have to figure out which family I'm at. Like,
I'm going to say...
Sounds like really important. What do you think?
I'm going to say black.
You say black?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll be the judge. I'll let you know.
Okay, you do that.
Well, I think we're going to be almost done here, but since we have a couple of seconds, I think in the spirit of that, right, which is, as you're thinking about kind of launching something new, and now we're here in the world of sports at Cannes Lion, which has been, sports has co-opted Cannes Lion this year. Venue, very big announcement, very big, a lot of excitement, expectation. People don't really exactly know, but this is a collaborative effort amongst, 3 companies, respectable companies who all have their own, brand voice, brand tone, all the things. How are you, and again, you don't have to say a lot, but, how are you thinking about that launch? Like, how does that, in whatever way you can talk about it, I think it's an interesting point.
So Venue has its own marketing team that is being built and its own content team, and is leaning on its partners like ourselves, obviously, in Disney and Fox. So take a quick step back, right? Sports is basically one of the last big pinnacles of live television, right? Obviously on the secular decline, it is things like the NFL, the NBA, and so on and so forth that have really kept audiences. But those audiences are declining. And so companies like Warner Brothers around the world, Venue in the US, have to start figuring out how to transition those audiences to new platforms. And so that was really the birth of Venue, right? Now, it'll come out later this year, towards the end of the summer. And the entire premise is to have convenience, because sports right now are
fragmented
all over the place,
so
right?
Fragmented.
And it's really hard to find a league, a team, a player that you love. So
or where to find them if you already love them, but you're like, where are they?
Exactly. Exactly. So Venue is a step in the right direction to make it easier for sports fans to have a sports destination. Warner Brothers Discovery has a lot of experience. We have Eurosport in Europe, and so we understand sports intrinsically and what drives people, because it's not just about what you put on air, but it's the commentators. It's
Yeah.
everything that you put around
Yeah.
it that brings fans in.
Yeah.
And so we're very excited for the venue
Yeah.
joint venture.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Well,
Yeah.
next year while we're here,
We
we'll
can talk
more
about
it
With
factually
part
than
2 to come
academically.
next year at the
Exactly.
Cannes Festival of
It'll be
Creativity.
House of Dragon season 3 and part 2 of us.
People
Yes.
will be like, it's like they're just gonna be. It'll be our new series.
Perfect. We can
Love
have
this
a
for
podcast.
us.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Pato, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. And thanks everybody. And please tune in to all the socials.
Thank you.